So let's go into the bogus attack of the day on Bernie Sanders. And you can imagine that these attacks are going to come fast and frequent. And I understand that people have various views on this stuff and they're being earnest in their viewpoints. But it doesn't necessarily mean that their earnestness escapes being wrong. Completely, incomprehensibly wrong. Wrong, at least from my perspective. I completely disagree with the assessment that's being leveled here. So let's talk about it. I don't have a huge amount of time to talk about it, but Mark Lamont is more than welcome to come on to this show to discuss what I am saying. I invite anybody who I talk about or who I have a go at or a complete disagreement of their particular political, their perspective. They're welcome on the show, especially when I bring it up on the show itself. So Mark Lamont is going to be the brunt of this, I don't want to call it attack, but this disagreement. Bernie Sanders is undermining a black woman. How is Bernie Sanders undermining a black woman? And who's the black woman in question that we're talking about that Bernie Sanders is undermining? We're talking about Stacey Abrams. Now, Abrams is going to give a speech. Apparently, it's the first African-American woman to give a speech in response to the State of the Union. This is good. I agree with this. I like Stacey Abrams. I covered her story and I thought she was robbed in that election. I did one story after the next on Stacey Abrams. It wasn't for views. I can tell you that. It was because I thought she was being robbed and I liked the cause to which she was pushing. And the standpoint of the State of the Union, they give her the State of the Union, and great. I like to see a strong black woman give the State of the Union. I suppose a weak black woman can give it also, but still, all things being equal, I like to see a strong black woman give the State of the Union. And God knows she was strong in that race. And she refused to quit in that race because she knew she was being robbed. So I don't blame her. Strength, identity, all of it. Gold star. No slight on my part. That said, Bernie Sanders gives a State of the Union rebuttal, and he has done so for the past few years, meaning every year that Donald Trump is given the State of the Union address, Bernie Sanders is given a rebuttal. Bernie Sanders, as far as I know, is not a Democrat. The State of the Union given by Stacey Abrams is indicative of what the Democratic Party is going to push, meaning it's coming out of her mouth, but at the end of the day, she's representing the Democratic Party itself, a party that supposedly Bernie Sanders is not technically a Democrat. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he did switch over his affiliation. But even if he is a Democrat, let's be very clear. The attack on him was he's not a Democrat. The reason that attack is leveled is because his political ideology, this socialist thing, is somewhat off kilter to what the Democratic Party typically pushes. And as such, what he's going to say in the State of the Union address in the rebuttal will be different than what Stacey Abrams says in the rebuttal. This in no way is a slight to Stacey Abrams. These are different political ideologies at work, and both are trying to find a certain degree of expression. As far as I know it, Stacey Abrams is not running for president of the United States. As far as I know it, Bernie Sanders most likely is. And like anybody running for president, you're going to want to get your political point out. And a rebuttal to the State of the Union address is one of those places that are apt to do so. He's doing this online. This is not going to be on television. They're not going to be dueling speeches with her and Bernie Sanders in the same TV spotlight. This in no way diminishes the achievement of being able to give the State of the Union, nor does it in any way diminish what Stacey Abrams is going to say. She is free to say whatever she wants, and she has her platform to say it. If you want to hear what Bernie Sanders has to think about it, you can go to Bernie Sanders' website and you can find out what Bernie Sanders has to think about it. This in no way guts Abrams. I guess I just want to make that point clear. These are two distinct political identities given what they believe as a rebuttal to the State of the Union address, and as such, they will be different in what they get across. One in no way undermines, guts, or repudiates the other. I just want to be clear. If Bernie Sanders came out and gave a barn burner speech that attacked the Democratic Party, so be it. It is purely up to him to do so. And you either agree with him or disagree with him in his assessment on where the country needs to go and whether or not the parties have led you astray in the process of doing so. I just want to make that clear. This idea that the very fact of him giving a speech is somehow undermining Abrams is nonsense. It's nonsense. These attacks that Bernie Sanders are somehow racist. Bernie Sanders is insensitive to the plight of blacks because Bernie Sanders is giving a speech to the State of the Union. Nonsense. Utter, complete nonsense. And yet, this is what's being peddled. This was the same nonsense of Bernie Sanders being in the race with Hillary Clinton is sexist. Bernie Sanders should get out of the race with Hillary Clinton. That's really sexist for him just being in a race. This is the first woman to run for president. Why is Bernie Sanders in this race? Now, you could have also said this is the first Jewish candidate to be in a race, and why is Hillary Clinton in the race with this Jewish candidate? But it doesn't go that route. It goes Bernie Sanders is sexist, Bernie Sanders is racist, Bernie Sanders is all these things because Bernie Sanders has the temerity to be in the race and try to take up space. He should take up space. He's doing God's work with that speech, and he should give a barn burner of a speech attacking the Democratic and the Republican Party. I don't give a shit who's at that lectern. I don't give a shit what her race is. I can back her up completely while being completely against the party to which she stands on that podium and represents. It has nothing to do with subverting her race. This is not an issue of identity. This is everything to do with what you want to accomplish politically. Full stop. I mean, for fuck's sake. Like, this is really the argument that's being made. And Mark Lamont, I think in other cases, particularly when he's talking about the Palestinian issue, is on point. But he is talking out of his ass on this very particular point. It is not wrong for another person of a different political ideology. And this idea that he represents the Democrats. Yes, he will when he runs into the race. But let's be clear, he's not running as a centrist. He's not running as slight, kind of lefty. He's running as Bernie fucking Sanders. And as such, yes, he should make that political opposition known. He should make that political opposition known in the State of the Union address, saying, this is what I have in mind for the country. She gave her political affiliation of what she wanted to take place. This is what I, Bernie Sanders, have in mind. And by the way, it is more racist to say that this is somehow undermining her, as opposed to, I guess my point is this. Either what she says stands on or not. Her identity has nothing to do with it. Her identity is enshrined in who she is. So fair enough. But what Bernie Sanders is doing has nothing to do with what she is putting forth. And the idea that you have to give her bumper rails within the political space is more offensive to me than this idea of Bernie Sanders somehow subverting what she's saying. She stands on her own politically. She either stands or falls on what she's going to do politically. This has nothing to do with Bernie Sanders. And it's certainly not Bernie Sanders being insensitive to her race, insensitive to her sex, or insensitive to whatever else is taking place. It's utter nonsense. Let's take a look at this. And I'm not going to keep this and apologize that I'm not staying to kind of tarry, but I have a clinic visit today that I have to take. The bad faith Bernie Sanders attack of the day. Bernie is racist because he's responding to the State of the Union address. Here's the point. Third straight year giving a response, meaning he's done it every year. His speeches will come after the Democratic response, which is, again, by Stacey Abrams, a black woman. It's not on TV, so you have to look it up again. I made that point clear. Bernie Sanders, Stacey Abrams is a great choice to deliver the Democratic response. I am very much looking forward to her speech. For the third year in a row following a Democratic rebuttal, I'll be on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube. You can respond to Trump. Nothing is taking place here. Political actors doing their political diligence. I just want to make that clear. People looking through the world through the context of race then get involved in the process. Mark Lamont, this is a bad move, especially assuming he's going to run. It only reinforces the idea that Bernie is not serious about representing the interests of the Democratic Party. It also reads as racially tone deaf as Stacey Abrams becomes the first black woman to deliver the response. I don't know with her being the first black woman to deliver a response have anything to do with Bernie Sanders. Nor do I have anything, I have no idea what this has to do with him being quote unquote tone deaf. And this reinforces the idea that Bernie Sanders is not serious about representing the interests of the Democratic Party. Fact of the matter is he is serious about representing those interests, which is why he will be running in the Democratic primary. And as running for the Democratic primary, trying to pull the policy objectives further to the left. That's his goal, that's his objective, that's what he's trying to accomplish. You know how you don't accomplish that? By not opening your mouth when Donald Trump gives the State of the Union address. This has nothing to do about race, nothing to do about sex. These are political actors Full stop. Full stop. Here's somebody else. Bernie Sanders should reconsider doing his own response tomorrow. Stacey Abrams, the first black woman ever to give State of the Union rebuttal, deserves the spotlight. She's getting the spotlight. She has all the spotlight in the world. People have to go find Bernie Sanders. She's more than capable of mopping the floor with Trump. It's not about mopping the floor with Trump. At least not from the standpoint of the purely the Democratic Party thing. Bernie Sanders is giving what he believes to be the State of the Union against Trump. Stacey Abrams is giving this in representation of the Democratic Party itself. People have to find Bernie Sanders and even to find the fact that he's given a State of the Union rebuttal again for the third year. She has the spotlight. She has the entirety of the spotlight. Just saying. Big mistake. Bernie Sanders doing his own State of the Union response and process stepping on official response by Stacey Abrams. You could make this charge every year. Every year. What? Why upstage Stacey Abrams? Please get a clue, Bernie Sanders, assuming you're going to run for president, even if you're not. Joan Walsh. Bernie Sanders either doesn't realize or doesn't care about the symbolism of redirecting attention to Stacey Abrams. All of these Democrats angry that Bernie Sanders is giving a response and stuck in the context of identity. The entirety of this argument is based in the context of identity. I am not against identity. I just think class is more important. And when it gets down to the brass tacks of it, I care about policy and policy objectives more so than this thing of purely this symbolism of identity. Just saying. I'll leave this article here. I gotta be honest, I'm always annoyed by stuff like this. Because I feel like there's something to be said about symbolism, but there's also something to be said about objective reality. And objective reality, political actors are giving speeches that they believe is going to be this kind of State of the Union. What is the state of our union? And you have one person who's running for the president who's trying to distinguish himself and has done so every year. A person who he continuously says is not even a Democrat because of the ideology that he pushes, but at the very least is a creature of the left and is fighting tooth and nail to try to pull the Democratic Party or reinsert the Democratic Party. He should be able to give his own version of what he believes the State of the Union to be. And he should, in that version of the State of the Union, give this idea on where he wants to take the country. These people who are so fixated on this thing of identity that they look at everything through that lens. And through that lens, Bernie Sanders should shut the fuck up. Let this black woman have her stage. Problem is, she has her stage. Bernie Sanders is not even going to be on TV, and people are going to have to look to find him. And again, I still make the point that it comes across as slightly more egregious to me that they don't believe that her State of the Union can stand on her own, hefted against Sanders. This is not a thing where race dances on the stage. This is not a thing where, it's like he's trying to lift weights. This is a political speech. And one person shouldn't be able to give a political speech because of symbolism, even though that speech is going to be probably fundamentally different than the other? Nonsense. Nonsense. Love Stacey Abrams. I'm going to sit here and listen to what Stacey Abrams had to say because I like her and I've supported her the entire way. My support for her, however, has nothing to do with her shirking or Bernie Sanders being shirked because of that support. Just want to be clear on this. All right, I'll leave this here, and I'll see you guys this evening. I'm going to cover the State of the Union, so hopefully, I'm going to cover the State of the Union. I'm going to just make that proclamation up, and I'll be here for that one, so I'll see you guys later this evening. Thanks all. If you enjoy the content, please consider sharing, liking, subscribing. You can always support this content through either PayPal or Patreon. Even $1 helps, so I'll see you guys this evening. Thanks all.